all that day. Well, tell us what happened when you lost it.
I accidentally shot him.
Huh?
I accidentally shot him.
You accidentally shot him?
Well,
all of them? How did you accidentally shoot him, buddy?
I didn't realize what I was doing.
What do you mean by that?
Yes, I wasn't thinking straight. Then I pulled the trigger.
Okay.
This was 16-year-old Gavin Smith. On December 13th, 2020, he was brought in for questioning by the detectives from Kanawha County in relation to the murders of his 4 family members. As the interrogation proceeded, detectives learned how Gavin remorselessly carried out the horrible act and shot his parents and 2 younger brothers in the head. It was truly shocking how a 16-year-old could be capable of doing something so demonic. But why did he do it? What could have driven a mere 16-year-old boy to kill his entire family? Gavin lived with his mother, Risa Mae Saunders, stepfather, Daniel Dale Long, and 2 younger brothers, Gage Ripley and Jameson Long, in their Cemetery Hill Drive home in Elkview, Kanawha County, West Virginia. Gavin and Gage had been attending school online while their parents, Risa and Daniel, took care of the house and ran their daily errands. Because of spending so much time together locked up in the house, things had started to heat up and there'd been arguments between Gavin and his parents. Nonetheless, with the holiday season around the corner, things were turning out to be better and everyone in the family was looking forward to having a merry time. Sadly, fate had different plans. Timothy Saunders, Gavin's grandfather, had been trying to contact Risa and her husband, Daniel. Timothy had been making multiple calls to Risa, but she never answered. Eventually, Timothy grew concerned and decided to check on her and the family. He drove to Risa and Daniel's home on December 13th, 2020, and arrived at around 10:30 in the morning. From that very moment, he sensed that something wasn't right. There was an odd silence at the property, and the house almost seemed deserted from the outside. Timothy approached the front door and rang the doorbell, but there was no answer. He tried opening the door and learned that it was unlocked, so he let himself in the house. It was pitch black inside, and no lights were on. Timothy called out Risa's name multiple times, only to be met with echoes fading into silence each time. He made his way to the master bedroom while still calling out his daughter's name. As soon as he flipped the switch and turned the lights on, his eyes met a sight that would haunt him for the rest of his life. Risa and Daniel lay dead side by side on the bed, and near the foot of the bed was Gage in a pool of blood. The bloody scene triggered a sense of panic in Timothy, and he rushed out of the house and reached out to a neighbor. He immediately dialed 911 and told the dispatcher that his family had been murdered from an apparent act of violence. Detectives from Kanawha County Sheriff's Office arrived at the scene shortly after the call. Timothy informed the deputies about the horrific discovery he'd just made. The detectives entered the house and identified the victims in the master bedroom as 37-year-old Daniel Dale Long, 39-year-old Risa Mae Saunders, and 12-year-old Gage Ripley. However, these weren't all the victims who had suffered a tragic fate. They also discovered the body of 3-year-old Jameson Long in his room down the hall. Jameson's body was lying halfway under the bed, as if he'd tried to run and hide to save himself. There was also a blanket placed over him, signaling that the killer probably felt remorse over shooting the little child. While all the victims had been shot, Jameson was the only one who had a slit throat in addition to the gunshot wound. An autopsy would later confirm that each victim died of a single gunshot wound to the head, shot at a close range, most likely less than a foot. In addition to that, the autopsy would also say that the killings took place around 3 to 4 days before the bodies were discovered, likely on December 9th, 2020. To keep the news of the horrible crime from leaking out to the residents in the neighborhood, detectives released very few details about the murders.
10:40 this morning, we received a call from a family member that came to check on the family at this location. Upon the family member's arrival and the first responding deputies, we found 4 deceased people inside this residence.
They also stated that this was an isolated incident and assured the neighbors that they were not in any danger. However, what the detectives didn't tell the neighbors was that along with the bodies, they were able to discover a handgun and a large knife which had been left abandoned at the house. While 4 members of the family had been murdered and identified, fifth member, 16-year-old Gavin, was nowhere to be found. Finding Gavin became the topmost priority for the detectives. When looking for Gavin, detectives learned that he had a girlfriend, 17-year-old Rebecca Walker. Detectives located Rebecca and reached her house. After questioning her, they learned that Gavin had been hiding at a house on Riverhaven Road in Clendenin, which was roughly a 30-minute drive from Gavin's house on Cemetery Hill Drive. This house belonged to Rebecca's grandmother, who'd been traveling at the time. Knowing that the house would be vacant, Rebecca let Gavin stay there. Within only an hour of finding the bodies at the Cemetery Hill Drive home, the detectives arrived at Rebecca's grandmother's house in Riverhaven Road. When the detectives entered the house, they found Gavin hiding behind a chest of drawers on the third-floor bedroom. Along with Gavin, detectives also recovered a few articles of clothing that belonged to Gavin, which had red stains on them. Testing would later confirm that these stains were bloodstains, and they matched that of Gavin's two younger brothers, Gage and Jameson. Before interrogating Gavin, the detectives first spoke to Gavin's girlfriend, Rebecca, and asked her what she knew about the murders. Rebecca told the detectives that Gavin had been facing abuse by his stepfather, Daniel, at home. She said that the abuse was so frequent and severe that, with time, Gavin began to fear for his life. Rebecca added that it was only a few days ago when Gavin's stepfather again tried to abuse him, and Gavin eventually snapped. He couldn't take it anymore. He took his stepfather's gun from the dresser and used it to kill his entire family. When the realization of what he'd done crept in and the panic started to take over his mind, he put the gun back, ran out of the house, and rode his bike to Rebecca's house. Rebecca said that Gavin was remorseful for what he'd done, and she even tried to console him. Defending Gavin once again, Rebecca told the detectives that if Gavin hadn't done anything, his stepfather would have killed him. In order to gain Gavin's trust and build a rapport with him, detectives even offered Gavin some food and a Coca-Cola, and tried to make some regular conversation with him to put him at ease.
Hey, do you already?
No.
You didn't wait on me, did you?
Yeah.
I just got it.
I know. I don't really like Wendy's fries.
Oh, you don't?
If you guys want, you can have it.
Oh, no, I'm good. Maybe one of the 4 for $4 things.
Same.
What you got? There's this guy that we work with in our office. That's all he'll eat. Is 4 for $4s when we go to Wendy's.
They're good.
That's pretty good. Would you get the junior bacon or the crispy chicken?
Junior bacon.
That's what I got.
Well, we have the same taste.
Once the detectives managed to get Gavin's guard down, they aimed to find out if Gavin had really suffered any abuse, and if so, to what extent. Keeping in mind what Rebecca had already told them, the detectives started asking Gavin questions about his family and what it was like living with them.
We want to understand what happened because, Gavin, a lot of times we work a lot of these type cases where you have a kind of a toxic home life. You know what that means? Like it's just
I get
and we deal with a lot of families that the parents mistreat the children, and there's domestic violence in the home, child maltreatment, child abuse, there's all types of different things that we deal with. Okay.
Yes.
We understand that, and in talking to your girlfriend, a couple of our detectives talked to our girlfriend, and she's told them
what's been going on.
What's been going on, and she obviously you told her what happened up there, right?
Yeah, abuse and all that. Abuse and all that.
Yeah. Well, and what all's happened with your family up there that has died? Okay.
That I don't know, but I know about the abuse. I said I didn't know about the season, but I know about the abuse because that's what they used to do all the time.
He even talked about the severity of the abuse he'd faced at home by his stepfather. According to Gavin, in addition to the physical abuse he faced, his stepfather also used to force him to perform acts of intimate pleasure for him. However, when Rebecca earlier spoke with the detectives, she only mentioned that Gavin faced physical abuse at home, and not the kind of abuse Gavin was talking about.
He hit you in your...
How did he hit you in your...
He grabbed me right here, and he punched me right... he hit me right in the dick when he grabbed me in the shoulder.
Okay. Now, did he do that one time, more than one time?
He done it a lot of times.
Okay. Was that... Are you talking about he did that a lot of times that night, or he did it a lot of times like
He did it in the past before. And he did a couple nights ago.
Okay, how many times did he hit you a couple nights ago?
He hit me 2 times and he punched me in the gut.
Okay.
And tried to make me do what it's gay. What he's trying to make me do. He tried to make me him.
Dan did?
Yeah, because Mom wanted to do it, Mom.
Huh?
I said because Mom wanted to do it, Mom.
What? Mom wouldn't do it anymore?
Yeah, with that. And he tried to do that, and I lost it.
Now that Gavin had developed a trust in the detectives, he opened up, and only a few minutes into the interrogation, gave a full confession that he had killed his parents and both his brothers.
Tell us what happened when you lost him.
I accidentally shot him.
Huh?
I accidentally shot him.
You accidentally shot him?
Well,
All of them? How did you accidentally shoot him, buddy?
I didn't realize what I was doing.
What do you mean by that?
Yes, I wasn't thinking straight. Then, still glad that gun I pulled the trigger.
Okay. Who'd you shoot first?
Dan.
Huh?
Dan.
Okay. You shot Dan first? It's okay, buddy. We're gonna work through this, okay? So you shot Dan first. Where did you shoot Dan? In the head?
I regret.
Okay.
I never met, but
What happened after that?
I smacked him on the head after.
You shot a who on the head after?
Engaged and Jay.
Mom engaged and Jameson.
The detectives figured out that Gavin's story of him facing abuse at home was hard to believe and had discrepancies. And so, not being able to confirm whether Gavin was telling the truth or not, the detectives seemed to be heading towards a dead end. Did Gavin really kill his entire family because of the abuse he was facing? Or was there something Gavin was hiding? Sticking to his story of facing abuse by his father, Gavin told the detectives in detail how he carried out the murders. Harboring hate for his parents and with his mind overtaken by rage, Gavin put his plan into action on the night of December 9th, 2020. Gavin and Rebecca had been messaging each other on the day of the murder as well. And as the night fell, and when Gavin's whole family was getting ready to go to bed, there was evil brewing in his head. He made a FaceTime call to Rebecca and told her what he was about to do. She supported him and told him to get it over with. Gavin acquired Daniel's handgun from the dresser and walked towards the master bedroom where Risa and Daniel were lying asleep. With the gun pointed at Daniel, Gavin walked towards him until he was in close range and pulled the trigger, shooting Daniel in the head. The loud gunshot woke Risa up, and before she could even comprehend what was going on, Gavin pulled the trigger again and shot his mother in the head. Gage, Gavin's 12-year-old brother, was in his room trying to get a good sleep. However, the disturbance in the house woke him up as well and forced him to check what was happening. By the time Gage got into Risa and Daniel's room, Gavin had already found a spot to hide. Witnessing the gruesome sight of his parents lying dead and covered in blood in front of him, Gage panicked. Before he could act upon it, Gavin showed up again and shot Gage in the back of his head. Gavin went back to his room and again FaceTimed Rebecca, telling her that he'd done it. Gavin was shaking and panicking, but Rebecca tried to calm him down. The only family member left in the house was Gavin's youngest brother, 3-year-old Jameson. After murdering his whole family in cold blood, Gavin left his house and hid in the woods for a few hours. Later, he headed to Rebecca's place, who helped him hide at her grandmother's house at Riverhaven Road. Gavin stayed there for 4 days until the detectives showed up there and took him into custody on December 13th, 2020. Even though the detectives knew what Gavin really did that night, one thing still remained a mystery. Why did he do it? What was his motive? The real motive came to light when detectives uncovered the full history of text messages exchanged between Gavin and Rebecca. While the interrogation kept going, detectives aimed to find out what conversations had been going on between Gavin and Rebecca. Recovering the text messages from Gavin and Rebecca's social accounts was a crucial part of this investigation, as it could help the detectives determine whether the teenage couple was telling the truth or not. Gavin told the detectives how he and Rebecca used to communicate and even shared his social media accounts with the detectives.
In person, on the phone, or on messages, or what?
It was on messages.
What kind of messages?
Google.
Huh?
Google.
Google?
Google.
How does that work out?
Duo.
Huh?
Google Duo.
Google Duo? Okay.
Oh, Google Meet. It's one of those where you can text and video chat at the same time.
Okay.
Even though Gavin and Rebecca had met only a few weeks before the COVID-19 lockdown in spring of 2020, the court documents show that the teenage couple had exchanged over 15,000 pages of Facebook messages. Using the social media login information that Gavin had given to the detectives during the interrogation, they were able to log into his accounts and managed to successfully recover most of the messages between Gavin and Rebecca that were sent behind Gavin's parents' backs. Additionally, there were records of hundreds of hours of voice and video calls as well between the teenage couple. Even though Gavin stuck to his story that he acted in a fit of rage and murdered his family after being abused by his stepfather for months, the messages told a completely different story. It turned out that Gavin had been having a hard time with his family because his parents didn't approve of Rebecca and didn't want him seeing her. They acted upon it and barred Gavin from having any contact with her. They even put a lock on the doors to keep Gavin from escaping the house. In addition to that, even though there was no proof that Daniel abused Gavin for his pleasure, it was confirmed that Gavin lived in a very strict and hostile environment in the house. With a padlock on the refrigerator, Gavin and his brothers had limited access to food. Also, Gavin was the only one looking after his younger brother Jameson, and the two shared a close bond. Already under close observation, Gavin was unable to do anything. However, even under supervision, Gavin managed to stay in touch with his girlfriend through secretive calls and text messages. But this wasn't enough for them. They wanted to spend time together, and that didn't seem like a possibility with Gavin's parents in the picture. In the text messages the detectives recovered, Gavin and Rebecca often talked about how it would be so much easier for them to stay with each other if Gavin's parents, Reese and Daniel, wouldn't be around to interfere. And with time, these hateful discussions eventually developed into a feeling of pure hate and evil in Gavin for his parents. All he needed was a nudge. And that final push came from his beloved girlfriend, Rebecca. She told Gavin that he needed to do something about their situation so that they could be together. Eventually, Gavin agreed, and around December 6, 2020, he devised a plan to murder his family in cold blood. He came up with a story that his stepfather, Daniel, had been abusing him for months, and to save himself from suffering any more in that house, he killed his family. With Rebecca on board with this plan, Gavin was sure that he'd escape the law unscathed using this made-up story and live with Rebecca happily ever after. However, once the detectives confronted Rebecca with the information they gathered from the text messages, Rebecca caved. With the truth laid out in front of her, she didn't have a way out anymore and told the detectives everything. From that moment on, Gavin's fate was sealed. Rebecca added that she wanted to spend time with Gavin to be around him. But because of Gavin's parents, even talking to Gavin over the phone became a challenge for Rebecca. She could never understand why Risa and Daniel hated her. Rebecca desperately wanted to be with Gavin, and so she vaguely put the idea of getting rid of his family in his head. Rebecca said that she might have added fuel to the fire that was already blazing inside Gavin. Now that everything was out in the open, the teenage couple was taken into custody. While Gavin was being held on bond pending trial, Rebecca's court proceedings took place in 2021, and she began to talk that not only did Rebecca know that Gavin had murdered his family, she also chose not to call the authorities and report the crime. Instead, she assisted Gavin with his escape and concealing details about the murders, which made her an accessory to the crimes. The prosecution also presented evidence that Rebecca had been aware of Gavin's intent to commit the murders up to a month before he acted. The strategy chosen by Rebecca's defense attorney, Robbie Long, was to show that Rebecca had suffered a traumatizing past, which made her an easy-to-influence person. The defense added that Rebecca had been manipulated by her boyfriend, Gavin, which made her sympathize with him and his actions. In the courtroom during her hearing, Rebecca made an attempt to read a letter that she'd written to acknowledge her mistakes and show remorse. However, she was overwhelmed with emotion and wasn't able to read it out loud. Instead, it was handed over to the judge. As her trial came to an end, Rebecca pleaded guilty as an adult in July 2021 to 4 counts of accessory after the fact. Her defense attorney was able to secure an agreement with the prosecutors, which said that Rebecca would plead guilty in exchange for the charges of first-degree murder being dropped. In September of that same year, Rebecca was handed a sentence of 10 years for her role in the murders. Chief Deputy County Prosecutor Don Morse stated that Rebecca received a deal because the state did believe that Rebecca had been manipulated to some extent by her boyfriend. Gavin's trial remained pending for a while due to his juvenile status at the time he committed the murders. The trial began on Monday, December 5th, 2022, with Judge Kenneth Ballard presiding over it. Gavin was facing charges of 4 counts of first-degree murder and 4 counts of use or presentment of a firearm. Gavin's trial wasn't based on whether he committed those murders or not, but rather on why he committed those murders. In addition to Rebecca taking the plea deal in September 2021, she'd also agreed to testify against Gavin in exchange for the lesser charge she was convicted of earlier.
He was having a rough time at home, and he didn't like being told what to do. He didn't like being told, what he could and couldn't do. And that what was including me and him getting to spend time together, which is what me and him both wanted. And that was the reason, basically, why this happened.
She added that even though she and Gavin had been on a video call, it was almost pitch black in the house, and she didn't see anything that unfolded that night. During the trial, enough evidence was presented that confirmed that Gavin and Rebecca had been on the video call before, during, and even after the murders. Gavin's grandfather, Timothy Saunders, who discovered the bodies, took the stand as well.
Did you go in the bedroom?
Started to. I bumped into something, so I found the light, turned the light on before I walked in. No, thank you.
At that point, did you figure out what you'd bumped into?
He said he had to turn the light on.
And what was there?
Gage.
The defense openly acknowledged that Gavin had, in fact, killed his family, but they claimed that the murders were the result of the tremendous abuse Gavin faced in the home.
And you'll find out that it got to the point where they put a padlock on the back door from the inside of the house. It was a regular lock that you could, anybody's door, you can open it from the inside to get out and lock on the outside. They put a padlock on the back door of the house. So you learn about the different ways that Gavin felt trapped in this house.
Picking out facts from that interaction between the deputy and Gavin, Sullivan told the jury that Gavin was made to take care of his little brother Jameson around the clock, so much so that Jameson even started to call Gavin his dad. Reminding the jurors of the hostile living conditions in the house, Sullivan stated that Daniel and Risa had put locks on the refrigerator to restrict Gavin and his brother's access to food. Sullivan said that Gavin had been living in that house, feeling trapped with his hopes for a better future dying every day. The fact that he tried to run away from his family multiple times only proved this point further. No one listened to Gavin's cries for help. On Thursday, December 8th, 2022, the jury resumed deliberations in the morning, and the verdict was announced at around 12:15 p.m. that afternoon. The jurors found Gavin Smith guilty of first-degree murder in the deaths of his stepfather, Daniel Dale Long, his mother, Risa Mae Saunders, and his youngest brother, Jameson Long. Gavin was also found guilty of the lesser offense, second-degree murder, in the death of his younger brother, Gage Ripley. Additionally, Gavin was found guilty of 1 count of use or presentment of a firearm. Daniel's father, Daniel Long, told the court that Gavin had taken away the precious time he could have had with his son and grandson.
I watched the dynamics of the relationship with Gavin and his brother Jameson. I cannot comprehend how he could have taken his brother's life, along with the lives of Daniel, Risa, and Gage. Holidays will never be the same. Heirlooms are no longer important, and events like taking your son and grandson fishing for the first time will never happen.
Finally, Gavin decided to address the court, where he spoke briefly and said that he wanted to apologize for his actions. Gavin begged the judge to grant him the alternative sentence and send him to the Anthony Center for Youthful Offenders. He promised that he would do better.
I'm begging you, if you do grant this alternate sentence Mr. Sullivan's talking about, you won't have an issue on me because I never was involved with it all until December.
Judge Ballard looked at Gavin and said that even though he was asking for the alternative sentence, expecting leniency from the court, he wouldn't get any.
Your actions can only be described as an act of pure evil. Executed your mother and stepfather by shooting them in the head while they were asleep. Then you executed your two brothers by shooting them in the head, the youngest which was hiding under his crib.
Gavin was given 3 life sentences, a 40-year sentence on a second-degree murder charge in the death of his 12-year-old brother Gage, and an additional 10 years for using a firearm during a felony. The judge ordered the sentences to be served consecutively. What do you think about the sentence Gavin received? Was it just, or should it have been harsher? Do you think that Rebecca played a crucial part in the murders and should have gotten a longer sentence?
Like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this.